Joel Embiid is currently playing some of the most impressive, dominant, and unguardable basketball I've ever seen. Over the month of December, the Sixers went 8-1 with him in the lineup as he averaged an absurd 40 points per game while shooting almost 61% from the field. If he wasn't hard enough to stop before, Nick Nurse's offense has taken it to an entirely different level. I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like Joel's gotten a lot more easy opportunities than he's ever had. It could be something as simple as running him off a cross screen into open space in the lane, or the fact that he's really getting after it on the glass, averaging a career-high 2.8 offensive rebounds, and those typically lead to automatic putbacks. Most of the easy opportunities I'm referring to, though, come in the low post. The dude is just massive. A 7-foot, 280-pound frame allows him to establish deep position pretty much whenever he wants, and good luck stopping him once he catches the ball. This new Philly offense does an incredible job of clearing out the middle of the floor so that he can operate in open space, and there's nobody in the league who can contain him one-on-one. As a result, what you'll see a lot of the time is weak side defenders attempting to blindside him with help while his back is turned. Notice how as he establishes inside position and receives the entry, Kobe White's ready to rotate over early, but Joel knows when and where the help is coming from and avoids it for an easy dunk. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that whatever the weak side defense does usually isn't going to affect the guy. Here's another one where he seals off inside position and receives an entry that's leading him towards the basket, but this time Miles Bridges perfectly times his help and takes away his momentum. The problem then becomes the fact that you have Bridges trying to defend Embiid on the block, and that's almost always a guaranteed 2. In addition to the size, Joel has phenomenal touch and is comfortable going to a wide variety of finishing angles. This time you're going to see him turn his back to the basket, and instead of using that position to spin over one of his shoulders, he's just going to score from that seemingly awkward position. Here's one of those plays that starts with a cleared out middle for him to isolate, and with Bogdanovich coming over to double from his left shoulder, he's going to turn over his right and set up a little push shot with the inside hand. And the big key here is that he's just as effective turning either way. So when Capella overplays the middle, taking away the right shoulder that he went to on that last one, he's going to spin left and get to an easy lay. He's able to get to all these different angles because of sharp footwork. This time he's going to threaten the right hand turn with a little half spin, and Gafford bites for just a brief moment, which is all it takes for him to float it up and in with some soft touch. You'll see the exact same things when he sets up a bit further in the mid post. He's so decisive off the catch that the defense can't even react to what he's doing, and by the time they do, he's probably spinning into something else. These plays really highlight his agility. I keep going back to that size, but he's an anomaly in that he moves with so much fluidity and balance, and that combination makes everyone look like a mismatch. The combo of size and mobility also makes Joel a nightmare to contain when attacking downhill. He takes his first step towards the middle to set up his defender before taking a second one back to his right, and that's the type of stuff you see from guards. What you won't see from guards, though, is the sheer power. If he's given space to build up even a very slight head of steam, he all of a sudden becomes a wrecking ball, just bullying his way to the rim. To get him slashing to the cup like this a bit more, Philly has implemented these flip actions as a staple in their offense. It's real simple. They clear out the middle, Maxey flips the ball to Joel, who's already starting on a drive, and he's just going to turn the corner and attack. And what ends up happening with these actions is that opposing defenders are so worried about him touching the paint that they sit back with at least a few feet of space, to which he counters by pulling up for mid-range jumpers. Here's another example, except this time Wiseman sits back even further, so he takes advantage by stepping into a 3. On this one, you're going to see Gafford do a great job of defending it. He positions himself close enough to the ball to not give up an easy jumper, but not to the point where he's giving up an easy blow-by. Unfortunately for him though, Joel can also use his live dribble to create separation like a wing. Defenses have to find a way to take away that space, so a lot of the time you'll see that second defender make a quick stunt at the ball before following his man to the wing. But Embiid's improved so much as a decision maker that he'll punish that as well. Very rarely will you see the defense do everything right, not giving up a jumper, not giving up a drive, and slowing his downhill momentum. But doing everything right just leaves him with all of that space in the middle of the floor to isolate, and I think the Sixers are happy with that result. Those isolations in the middle are his bread and butter, and what he's primarily looking to get to is this hanging left-hand hesitation into a pull-up jumper. If the ball's in his right hand, he'll use his handle to get it back to his left, hesitating before crossing over, and from there he can set up that signature move. This next one again starts with the right hand hezi and cross left into the hang dribble, but Nick Richards doesn't bite, so he stops, does it all over again, and even though he's smothered, that's a decent look for him. Now typically you'd think that when a 7-footer is dribbling right in front of you, you'd have a pretty good chance at making a play on the ball. But against Embiid, active hands means hands in the cookie jar, and he'll just do the exact same shooting motion up through the arm to earn some free throws. One simple move, a left hezi pull, creates all these problems, but a preference towards his left doesn't mean that he can't also go right. So on a play like this where Richards angles his body towards the middle, he can attack the top foot and instead pull up for a jumper going baseline. He can create separation in a ton of different ways. Here you're going to see him start on a drive right, and once he gets his defender's momentum going towards the basket, look at how he drags his back foot. That knee is almost touching the ground as he pulls back into a jumper, and I just can't get over someone moving with so much control at that size. Speaking of which, shoulder bumps are pretty much a cheat code when you're almost 300 pounds, so he kind of has a guaranteed 2 to 3 feet of space on these jumpers. Not that he needs that much space anyways, because he's such a ridiculously tough shot maker. And tough shot making at 7 feet means that he's got unlimited access to offense over the top. You'll have these possessions where it feels like they can't create anything of quality or find themselves battling the shot clock, and he's sort of the ultimate bailout. Just get him the ball and at worst you're getting like a 50% mid-range jumper. The ability to just shoot over the top of defenders like that makes him lethal when facing up from a standstill. You don't want to sit back and let him torch you from 15 to 20 feet, but you also don't want to play him too close or you'll find yourself dealing with that wrecking ball of a driving game. So when he sets up, it's almost like a guessing game. He'll patiently stare down his defender and there's no way of knowing what he's going to do. Will he drive? Will he shoot? Will he kick it out? And that level of unpredictability is impossible to scheme for. I think it goes without saying that when he's facing up, it's going to require some extra defensive attention. Here you're going to see the Bulls essentially build a wall. You've got Caruso sitting in a left-hand driving lane, Terry roaming way over from the weak side to take away the nail, and with seemingly nowhere to go, he just takes a dribble and steps back into a long 2. Here's another one just like that, where the Pistons have positioned themselves in a way to completely shut off the paint. He tries to attack but gets met with some 90s looking defense and resets for the left hand hezi pull, where that unlimited access over the top comes in handy. It's the same thing against double teams. Poole comes over from one pass away to take away his left, but it's like he's not even there because Joel's just rising over the top. The Wizards actually tried running a lot of zone against him, only to be met with the realization that those isolations in the middle are the ultimate counter. Notice how he's sort of shadowing the ball as he sets up on the right elbow, and it's clear that the Sixers are trying to get the ball to him. When it's swung to Batum, he flashes to the opposite elbow, and there's just nothing the defense can do from there. Another thing with the zone is that it puts a small defender up top, so when Joel sets up for one of his isolations out in space, it's an automatic mismatch. And to be honest, it kind of felt like he was playing against a bunch of 5th graders. While Embiid can set up and operate in so many different spots as a lead creator, the biggest point of emphasis with Nurse has been using him a lot more like Sacramento and Denver use their playmaking 5s, out on the perimeter and getting into lots of 2-man game with Maxey. Typically when screening, what he's looking to do is roll to the mid-range for one of those automatic jumpers. And if the big doesn't close that space right away, he'll put it down in the short roll on a drive, once again establishing the downhill threat. Of course, because of the outside shooting, he's also a threat to pop out for 3s if given enough room, but if defenders close out too hard, he'll fake the jumper and put it down for some more drives, continuing to showcase his versatility. In simpler terms, there's just nothing the defense can do. You think you take away one thing and it just opens up another, you adjust to that and he throws another counter, and it's an endless cycle that leads to a month of 40 points per game. Something interesting though, if you opened social media during this stretch, you'd find a lot of people making an effort to discredit it. I mean, they faced the Wizards and Pistons 2 times apiece, along with the Hawks, Hornets, and Bulls. Over those 7 straight games, their opponents had a combined record of 36 and 121 heading into the matchup. Next up on the schedule though was the 1-seeded Wolves, led by their number 1 defense that's anchored by the frontrunner for Defensive Player of the Year. And let's just say that all of a sudden those narratives didn't hold up so well. Joel's first touch came with an open side isolation. Right off the catch, he puts it down on a drive and draws a foul, and actually that was Rudy's second foul early on, so he had to be seated. That meant next time he isolated on an open side, it was Karl Anthony Towns who had the task of defending him one-on-one. Not so good for Minnesota. This next one starts all the way out on the perimeter. He works his way to the elbow and sets up that hanging left-hand hesitation, which Towns reacts to by sticking his arm out to reach, which Joel of course catches in the cookie jar. They clearly couldn't just continue to leave him in single coverage, even when it's Naz Reid. And with Edwards aggressively helping, that leaves Maxey on an island just 1 pass away as he steps into a high quality 3. About halfway through the second, Gobert was back in the game, and the Sixers attacked him with a high pick and roll. Because Maxey's so quick to get downhill, Rudy's forced to pick him up and drop coverage. That leaves Joel with some space to attack off the catch, where he gets to that signature pull-up J. It's not just against screens. Gobert's first instinct as a defender is to always prioritize the paint, which meant that Joel had pretty unlimited access to the mid-range. And when Rudy picked up another foul, it was the exact same thing against Naz Reid. The Wolves completely packed the paint, almost zoning him up, but there's no way to take away that offense over the top. Here's another example. He gets the ball in the middle and isolates from a standstill with all eyes on him, not letting him go anywhere without meeting a second defender. He again rises up for a jumper, which probably should have gotten called for a landing space foul, but it's a perfect make nonetheless. Minnesota just straight up didn't have an answer at all for Joel's mid-range game. This time he's again working on an open side against Gobert, and the drive is such a threat that he's left with a couple feet of space, which turns out to be a couple feet too many. This next one starts from up top, ball in his right hand, and when he crosses left, he goes straight to that hanging hezi. The move completely buckles Rudy, leaving him with room to pull up for yet another jumper. A couple minutes later, it was the exact same thing. The right hand hezi, cross into the left hand hezi, except this time Gobert doesn't drop back. So instead of pulling up for a jumper, Joel puts it back down on a drive, completely discards the big man with his shoulder, and lays it in for an easy 2. When he gets the ball in the middle of the floor like this, it's not just the isolations that the defense has to worry about, but him setting up a two-man action with all that open space. I want you to focus on Gobert. He's hesitant to leave Joel open on a roll or pop, meaning that he's a step late getting over to Harris's drive, which results in a dunk. And the reason that's important is because a couple minutes later they went back to it again, but now Gobert's gonna pick up Harris and alter his attempt at the rim, leaving nobody to stop Embiid from following on the glass. Of course, he can also be on the receiving end of these handoffs as well. This play starts with one of those flip actions I talked about, and from there he's going to use the space to set up a live dribble isolation. I bet you can guess exactly what move he goes to, and Gobert tried to reach. That's another foul. Actually a 3-point play. His attack is just so diverse that you never even know what to expect. Here he's going to attack off the catch, come to a screeching halt to set up some exaggerated footwork across the paint, and just look at how his body is angled when he releases the ball. What can you even do? The same guy that just did whatever you want to call that from the perimeter was also terrorizing Minnesota's bigs in the low post. Here you can see that agility as he leaves Reed in the dust with nobody in position to protect the rim. And this time, to get the ball out of his hands, you're going to see a full-on double team. Except it doesn't get the ball out of his hands at all, instead turning in the opposite direction to attack the middle and getting himself another big-time dunk. That takes us to the fourth quarter, where with both Maxey and Embiid on the floor, it pretty much all came down to that two-man game. He's going to fake the handoff so that Gobert sits a few feet back and drop, and that leaves him with more than enough room to get to the elbow for a mid-range jumper. This one starts with a high ball screen, and with Maxey pulling Rudy's attention, Joel's gonna sit back at the three-point line. He gets the ball and immediately attacks the closeout, getting the step on Gobert and drawing a foul. Here's a real similar play, except this time Joel's gonna screen and roll to the mid-range, where nobody's even in the same area code as he sets and fires. Embiid finished this game with 51 points on 77.5% true shooting, making it his second 50-point game of the month and fifth with at least 40. Remember, he only played 9 games, so that means he had 40 or more in over 55% of them. On the season, he's averaging 35, 12, and 6, which doesn't even sound real, and the Sixers are 22 and 9 behind their top 3 offense. He continues to evolve and solidify himself as one of the most unstoppable forces to step foot on a basketball court. Great defensive team or not, Joel Embiid is impossible to guard. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of Embiid. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.